Stop wasting money on overhyped gadgets you'll never use. Hey, Johannes from GearUpYourLife here, and today I will show you 12 genuinely genius travel gadgets. For me, genius means two things. They either make your trip a lot easier, or they're so versatile that they solve problems in multiple situations. So these are real gadgets that actually solve problems and are generally worth packing in 2026. And as always, stick around because we have 4 bonus picks at the end that's small upgrades that deliver a surprisingly big impact. Our first genius gadget is a slim portable fan from Equally, and it's actually one of those things I never really talked about before, mainly because most of the time I don't even use a fan when I travel and thought it looks a bit stupid, but that changed last year in Spain. I picked this up during a heat wave where moving through cities, sitting in buses, or even just waiting at cafes became unnecessarily exhausting. Not unbearable, just constantly uncomfortable. And this fan solved exactly that problem without turning into another bulky gadget I'd regret packing. What makes it clever is how slim and practical it is. It's small enough to disappear in a sling or day pack, light enough that you don't think about it, and still strong enough to make a real difference when it's hot. You can use it handheld, place it on a table, or just point it exactly where you need airflow, especially in trains, airports, or non-air conditioned apartments. No noise drama, no weird design, just a simple functional tool. And the reason this deserves a spot here, it fixes a very specific travel problem without adding friction. It's not essential, but in the right conditions, it noticeably improves the experience. And considering it costs under $10, it's a small upgrade that actually makes sense, especially for summer travel. The next genius gadget is a double small carabiner from ZP Solution. It looks extremely simple, but that's exactly why it works so well. The build quality is what makes the difference here. It's made from solid metal, feels rigid, doesn't bend easily, and still stays compact enough to live permanently on your bag without adding bulk or noise. Nothing flimsy, nothing decorative, just clean, functional hardware. Instead of constantly opening my backpack, I usually keep a few things clipped on the outside: keys, sandals, sometimes a cap or a small pouch. What I like here is that it never feels annoying or in the way. It stays where it is, doesn't rattle, and doesn't feel like something I have to think about. Over time, it just becomes part of the setup, and that's usually a good sign that something is working well. The double clip design is the clever part. It allows you to separate attachment and access, instead of constantly unclipping everything. That small detail turns a very basic item into a genuinely smarter tool, and considering it costs only a few dollars, the value is hard to ignore. It's not exciting, it's not flashy, but it solves a simple problem in a cleaner, more reliable way than most alternatives. That's exactly what makes it a genius pick. The next item on our list is a foldable water bottle from Vapor for around $16. Foldable bottles are one of those things that sound great in theory, but often disappoint in real use. This one gets a lot of it right. The material is flexible but still feels durable enough for regular travel. When it's empty, you can roll it up and barely notice it in your bag, which already solves one of the biggest problems with rigid bottles. One thing worth mentioning though, I've heard from others that the small carabiner attachment at the top can wear out over time if it's used constantly. Personally, I haven't experienced that, even when clipping it to my backpack or hanging it in the car, but it's something to be aware of. That's also why I wouldn't rely on it for anything critical. But as a lightweight, packable water bottle that you use when needed and store away when you don't, it works very well. It's not trying to replace a solid everyday bottle, it's designed to disappear when you don't need it. And that's exactly what makes it a smart genius pick for travel. Our fourth genius gadget is something I genuinely find very clever, a simple compressed travel towel. It's also something my girlfriend has been using a lot lately, which already says quite a bit. The idea is straightforward. A full-size towel compressed into a small puck, costing around $10. You activate it with water, it expands instantly, and you have a usable towel without carrying bulk. This makes the most sense in very specific situations. Long road trips, spontaneous stops, beaches, gym visits, or anytime you don't want to dig out a proper towel. I especially like it for longer car rides where you never really know what you'll need along the way. I use the version from Cleany, and the quality is surprisingly solid. The fabric feels better than expected, holds together well, and doesn't feel like a one-time use gimmick. My girlfriend actually prefers these over classic soap sheets like Fomen in many situations, simply because they're more versatile. It's not meant to replace a real towel, but as a lightweight, compact backup that solves a lot of small practical problems, it's a genuinely smart addition to a travel setup. The next genius gadget is something that's actually quite well known in other travel communities, especially on cruises, but I rarely hear anyone talk about it outside of that. That's exactly why I wanted to include it here. These are simple towel bands from Cruise On, and they usually cost just a few dollars. Instead of clips, you slide them around your towel to keep it in place, on a chair, a railing, or pretty much anything where wind would normally blow it away. What I like about this approach is how minimal it is. No metal parts, no bulk, no sharp edges, just elastic bands that do the job quietly and reliably. They pack flat, weigh almost nothing, and don't feel like another unnecessary gadget. They're especially useful at the beach, pool, or during stops where you leave your towel unattended for a moment. And I see a huge use case for this gadget in resorts or beach vacations, and that's why they fit perfectly into the genius category. A simple solution that already works well in one travel niche but deserves more attention beyond it. The next genius gadget is the Pillar Go, a small stainless steel pill organizer. I actually first noticed this one here in Athens when I saw another traveler using it and had to ask what it was. It's a compact metal container with a secure lid designed to keep tablets dry and protected. No plastic, no flimsy hinges, just a solid waterproof stainless steel tube that feels like it's built to last. I personally don't even use it mainly for medication. I use it for electrolyte tablets because those sachets get wet incredibly fast once you're traveling, especially in summer, at the beach, or when everything ends up in the same pocket or bag. And anyone who's ever pulled out half-dissolved tablets knows how annoying that can be. Of course, you can use it for all kinds of pills or supplements, but what makes this genius is the protection factor. Keeps everything dry, doesn't get crushed, and doesn't feel like something you need to baby while traveling. It's small, discreet, and costs around $10 to $12. Not an essential item, but a very smart solution to a surprisingly common travel problem. The next genius gadget is a foldable Bluetooth keyboard from Samsung. This is something I end up using more often than I expected, especially when I'm traveling and don't have a laptop with me. A lot of times I'm writing my newsletter on my phone, answering longer emails, or even trying to sketch out parts of a script. Doing that on a touchscreen gets frustrating very quickly. This keyboard basically turns your phone into a small writing setup that's actually comfortable to use. The size is what makes it work. It folds down small enough to fit into a sling or day pack, but once it's open, the keys feel spaced and usable, not cramped or toy-like. You can also connect it to an iPad, but I personally use it almost exclusively with my phone, and for that, it's surprisingly effective. Charging is simple as well. You just plug it in, it lasts a long time, and it's not something you constantly have to think about. At around $40 and sometimes closer to $30, I think the value is very solid. It's not only for digital nomads, because what I also really like is that it lets me travel lighter on purpose. On shorter trips or weekend escapes, I often leave my MacBook at home, but still have a setup that allows me to write for an hour if I really need to. That matters to me, because long before YouTube, I started my whole online work as a copywriter for companies, so writing has always been part of how I work. The next genius gadget is the Satechi on-the-go 7-in-1 multiport adapter. This is definitely on the more expensive side, usually around $50 to $60, so it's not something I'd recommend blindly, but for the right setup, it can be very useful. I've been using this adapter consistently since Croatia, and what stands out to me most is the form factor. Almost every dongle looks the same, long and rectangular, with a loose cable that always feels like the weakest point. This one is circular, thicker, but with a much smaller footprint, and the cable wraps around the body, which keeps it protected and out of the way. Another detail I actually like more than I expected is the magnetic design. You can attach it to metal surfaces or even to a MagSafe phone, which makes it surprisingly practical when working on the go. And if magnets don't work for your setup, it comes with an adhesive ring so you can still mount it where you want. All 7 ports are genuinely useful. Charging, USB-A, SD cards, HDMI, even Ethernet. I've used the Ethernet port more than once in places where Wi-Fi was unreliable, and that alone can save a workday. One thing to be aware of, the USB-C port is for charging only, not data transfer, and the SD card slots don't feel as smooth as on some rectangular hubs. For me, this is exactly the kind of product that makes travel setups calmer and more predictable, and that's why I'm confident I'll be using it for a long time going forward. The next genius gadget is the magnetic cable organizer from Orbikey. You can think of this as a small upgrade to standard Velcro cable ties, which are already great, but this takes the idea one step further. Instead of wrapping and unwrapping cables, the magnetic design lets you snap them together in seconds. It feels cleaner, faster, and more controlled, especially when you're dealing with charging cables, headphones, or power cords you use every day. The quality is what stands out here. The materials feel solid, the magnets are strong enough to hold cables securely, and nothing feels cheap or flimsy. It's clearly designed to be used long term, not replaced after a few trips. At around $12, it's not expensive, but it also doesn't feel like a throwaway accessory. It's one of those small tools that quietly improves how organized your bag feels, without adding any real weight or complexity. Velcro ties still work perfectly fine, but if you want something a bit more refined and quicker to use, this is a very nice upgrade. Simple, effective, and genuinely satisfying to use. Our 10th genius gadget is the Dynatag electronic luggage tag. It's basically a modern upgrade to the standard luggage tags most of us still use. Instead of a piece of paper with your name on it, this works digitally. You set it up once, connect your details, and that's it. No handwriting, no replacing cards, no worrying about information getting wet or unreadable. What I like about this approach is how simple it is. There's no battery to charge, no app you constantly have to open. It just sits on your bag and does its job. If someone scans it, the right information is there, without exposing more than necessary. To me, this feels like the natural next step. Traditional luggage tags still work, but this is cleaner, more durable, and much better suited to how we travel today. After a while, you forget it's even there, in the best possible way. It's not a flashy gadget, but it solves a very basic travel need in a smarter way, and that's exactly why it belongs in a list like this. The next genius gadget is a simple USB data blocker from Boysung. This one sits in an interesting grey area, and I want to be very transparent about that. Not long ago, I read an article pointing out that data theft through public USB ports at airports or cafes is actually quite rare. It's probably a bigger topic online than it is in real life, and I think that's important to acknowledge. That said, this is still one of those cases where I personally lean toward caution. If something exists that can block data transfer entirely and turn a public USB port into power-only charging, I don't really see see a downside to carrying it, especially since it's tiny and takes up almost no space. I see this more as an emergency or backup tool than something you constantly rely on. You might never need it, but if you're ever unsure about a charging port, it gives you one simple option without having to think too much. For me, this falls under better safe than sorry, but I'm genuinely curious how you see it. Do you think tools like this are useful or overkill? Let me know what you think. Last but not least on our list is a special neck pillow, and I know this is a category that often gets a lot of hate. Neck pillows online usually have a pretty bad reputation. Most of them are bulky, awkward to pack, and a lot of people argue that you can just use a jacket or a hoodie instead. And to be fair, I thought the same for a long time. That's exactly why I went with this inflatable neck pillow from Sinani. When it's deflated, it takes up almost no space, which already solves the biggest issue most neck pillows have. More importantly, the support feels very different. I noticed the difference immediately. Using a jacket or something soft can work for short moments, but it doesn't actually support your neck. With a proper neck pillow like this, your head stays in place, and the strain on your neck is noticeably lower, especially on longer flights, buses, or train rides. It's not something everyone needs, but if you've ever arrived somewhere with a stiff neck or sore shoulders, this is one of those small upgrades that can make a real difference without adding bulk to your bag, and that's why this one earns its spot here. Not because it's trendy, but because it solves a very real problem in a smarter way. But don't go anywhere yet, because as always, we have 4 bonus gadgets coming up. Quick side note before we continue. If these genius gadgets already help, I put together a much bigger free resource. Inside the newsletter, you'll find over 75 tested travel gadgets, plus 8 detailed packing guides for different travel styles, from carry-on only trips to road trips and city travel. On top of that, there are 25 practical travel tip cards and a growing community of more than 1,500 travelers who are already using it. You can join the newsletter and get everything completely for free through the first link in the description. Alright, let's keep going. Our first bonus gadget is beach powder from Bolibay. It's designed to remove sand from your skin instantly, especially after the beach. You just apply a small amount and the sand comes right off. Quick side note, one comment always points out that you can simply use baby powder, and that's true. I looked it up and it works in a very similar way. So if you already have baby powder, that's a solid little life hack. This is just the more travel-friendly, compact version. The next bonus gadget is a digital luggage scale from Fretu. It's simple, lightweight, and does exactly what it's supposed to do. You clip it onto your bag, lift it, and you know where you stand before getting to the airport. Not exciting, but very useful, especially if you travel close to weight limits. Another bonus gadget is a silicone sink stopper from Mr. Seeger. It turns almost any sink into a usable wash basin. Perfect for doing laundry in apartments or hotels where the sink doesn't seal properly. It packs flat, weighs nothing, and solves a surprisingly common travel problem. And if you're interested, I actually go much deeper into washing clothes while traveling on the website. It's linked as a pinned comment and completely free, of course. And the last bonus gadget is the Adalock portable door lock. This is all about extra security. It adds an additional locking point from the inside and works without tools or permanent installation. Not something you'll use every day, but when you want that extra bit of peace of mind, it's very reassuring to have. If you enjoyed this one, the video on the left is definitely for you, and you'll find even more great travel gadgets there. And if you're not subscribed yet, you can do that right here on the right side. Thanks a lot for watching all the way to the end, and as always, safe travels, guys.